All right, and we are live on the fantasy forecast. It's really the first official episode since the season has started. We had a crazy week one in the NFL. Saw some stuff I liked, saw some stuff I didn't like. Um, I had Aaron Rodgers on my fantasy football team. Now I'm kind of scrambling to find a replacement right now. Unfortunate to see. My heart goes out to Aaron. Um, but yeah, really the format of this show is going to be based off the algorithm that we have made at Fantasy Forecast. I'm going to go through the top five players that you need to start this week, and then the top five players that I'm saying stay away from this week. There's always some obvious players that you're going to want to start. You know, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Jefferson, those types of guys. I'm not really going to dive into those as much unless I see a red flag against the defense that they're playing. But really, I'm just trying to show you guys what I'm seeing in the algorithm, in the stats. The whole way this algorithm is built is that it's going to be more accurate as the season goes on. So, we've only had 1 week. Not to take away from the algorithm, but it's going to be like a lot more accurate after this coming week. But I found some cool stuff, found some pretty surprising things as well. So let's dive into that. And yeah, make sure you like, subscribe, comment any questions you have going into week two, or actually week three, because this video will come out and then I'll record week three's episode. So any questions you have, I would love to, dive into some questions, some stats on the next episode. Yeah, so let's start. All right, so the top five quarterbacks that the algorithm is saying to start this week is Kirk Cousins, Tua. I'm not even going to try and say his last name. Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, and Trevor Lawrence. I'm not going to go too in depth with any of these, just because the in-house algorithm is the in-house algorithm. But just to talk a little bit through these, Kirk Cousins is going to ball out this week. It's the Vikings versus the Eagles. Good matchup. Should be a fun game to watch. But I will say the Eagles did allow the Patriots to throw for over 300 yards last week, exactly 306 yards. And really, if Mac Jones is throwing 306 yards, then what is Kirk Cousins going to throw, right? 400, 500? We'll see. We'll find out. But it's clear to me that this is going to be a lot of touchdowns in this game. So I would start Kirk Cousins for sure. Tua. Tua threw for over. I can get it right here. I want to say it was over 400 yards last week. Yeah, 466 yards. The Patriots defense was all right. They allowed 154 yards, but 466 yards, you average those two, you're going to get 310 yards, right? So, Tua's going to have at least, give or take, 275 yards passing. I would start him. Tyreek Hill's a beast. Jalen Waddle's a beast. If you have Tua, grab him. If he's available, he shouldn't be available, but if he is, grab him. Try and trade for him. I would definitely be trying to trade for him right now, but I know my buddy Palmer does not want to give him to me. It's all right. Jared Goff, this is a good matchup against, got it right here. Had it right here. Oh, the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah. So Seahawks really almost the same thing. They allowed 334 yards last week. They didn't allow any passing touchdowns, which kind of makes me a little nervous, but 334 yards is a lot of yards to allow, right? Detroit, they did throw for 250 yards, one passing touchdown. I would I would start Goff if you have him. I know a lot of people have him on their bench right now, kind of as a backup guy, but this is a good week. Start him. You know, he's going to have at least 15, 16 points in PPR. Going on to Matt Stafford. All right, Matt Stafford balled out this week. Matt Stafford. Who would have thought, right? No, I'm just kidding. He went to a Super Bowl 2 years ago. They played the San Francisco 49ers. You should be a little cautious about this one, just a little bit. I mean, the 49ers have a really good defense. Um, Looking at the stats right now, let's see. They allowed 198 yards last week. Thing is, Matt Stafford threw for 334 yards. So I don't know. I think he's gonna have a big game. Really, the algorithm tells me he should be throwing for around 225, 250. We'll see. We'll see. This is gonna be a really interesting game. This is one I'm actually gonna turn into and watch. But I'm saying definitely start Matt Stafford if you have him. If he's riding the bench, then all right. All right. So up next, we're gonna discuss the quarterbacks that I'm saying that you should probably sit out this week. That doesn't mean that these aren't elite quarterbacks, and that doesn't mean that you should never start these quarterbacks. But based off the statistics I'm seeing, I would not be starting any of these guys this week. I was going to make a list of 5, but actually found 7 that I really don't like this week. So I'm just going to go through all those. First off, we have Anthony Richardson. We have Joe Burrow. That one's a little surprising. Well, not really after this past week, but Kenny Pickett, Daniel Jones, Desmond Riddler, Brock Purdy, and Russell Wilson. Like I said, just the stats of the defenses they're playing just really doesn't make me favor any of these. Anthony Richardson, I mean, the Colts are playing the Texans. The Texans defense is actually pretty decent. I know the offense couldn't capitalize. I think CJ Stroud's still trying to like find his identity in the NFL. But the Texans allowed no passing touchdowns last week and only 155 yards to Lamar, who I would say has years more experience than Anthony Richardson. I wouldn't start him this week. Um, I would get him on your team. I would let him ride the bench a few weeks just to really see what this Colts team does. I didn't necessarily watch that game, but I had some buddies that did. I know my buddy AJ is really big on Anthony Richardson right now. So, I mean, don't start him this week. See how they do. But statistically, the Texans their defense is pretty decent. So, next up is Joe Burrow. I like the Bengals. I like Joe Burrow. They played pretty dang bad against the Browns, right? I think we may see something similar against the Ravens this week. The Ravens, I mean, on paper, have a better defense than the Browns. They did a really good job stopping Houston. I would stay away. Keep Joe Burrow. Don't trade him. Don't drop him. But don't play him this week. Let them kind of get their rhythm back. I mean, he's coming back from an injury. They're playing a really good defense. This is a divisional matchup, so yeah, I wouldn't feel good about starting him right here. Kenny Pickett. I'm not gonna go into too much detail on Kenny Pickett. From what I saw of that Steelers game, they looked bad. They looked really bad. I tried to watch the whole game. I could not. I mean, the algorithm shows. I mean, this is similar to the Bengals Ravens game I just talked about. Browns team locked down the Bengals 67 yards, 0 touchdowns. I mean, Steelers might not even have 50 passing yards this week. Like, we'll see. But don't start Kenny Pickett. Don't start any Steelers players this week. Like, um, Daniel Jones, Desmond Riddler, Brock Purdy, Russell Wilson. Most of those are pretty explanatory. Brock Purdy, he's the only one that you might say, like, oh no, Brock Purdy's a beast. 49ers are a beast. 49ers are good. Let me pull up these stats real quick. The 49ers are good, but the Rams defense, they played solid. They only allowed 95 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. I mean, if the Niners win this game, it's going to be a rushing game. It's going to be a McCaffrey game. My McCaffrey people, start McCaffrey. Yeah, I wouldn't start Brock Purdy on this one. Rams look good. Secondary look good. Yeah, that's when they go either way though too. Rams, like I think everybody kind of thought the Rams are going to be bad, but actually turned out pretty decent, pretty dang good. All right, let's get into running backs. Running backs that you need to absolutely start this week. So I have Nick Chubb, I have Justice Hill, I have Austin Eckler, I have David Montgomery, and I have Bijan Robinson. Okay. Bijan Robinson / Tyler Aguilar because they kind of go back and forth a little bit, but I think starting either of those is going to be fine. Nick Chubb is Nick Chubb. Start Nick Chubb. I honestly shouldn't even put him on the list, but it was just the algorithm was just like literally Nick Chubb. So like start him. He's gonna pop off. It's probably gonna be his biggest week. Justice Hill. I'm really liking Justice Hill this week. J.K. Dobbins went down, unfortunately. We know the Ravens are a big running team. You know, they like their little option. They like their little, just the little handoffs. So it looks like Justice Hill is going to be the guy. The Bengals allowed a lot of rushing yards last week. Let me see. Let me find the stats on that one. Bengals. Where are the Bengals? Okay. Yeah, the Bengals allowed 206 rushing yards last week, right? That was the Nick Chubb, and yeah, Justice Hill isn't Nick Chubb, but anytime you're allowing 206 rushing yards, like even if Justice Hill gets half of those, that's 100 rushing yards. That's pretty good. They also allowed a rushing touchdown. I like that. I like that for Lamar too. If you have Lamar this week, he should be solid. But Justice Hill's a good one. I know he's on a lot of benches right now. I was looking at the percentage earlier. I'm sure when the waiver wire clears, he's going to be gone. But make a trade for him. Somebody probably will use him as leverage. So definitely start Justice Hill if you can snag him. Austin Eckler, that matchup's looking really good. Let's see what the stats show. I typically wear glasses, but the reflection off the light kind of like messes with the screen. So bear with me here. All right, so they play the Titans. Chargers play the Tennessee Titans this week. Okay, yeah. So this was one that like the algorithm could go both ways. The Titans didn't allow a lot of rushing yards. to the Saints. Only 70 rushing yards, one rushing touchdown. But the difference is that like the Saints didn't really have their like main running back, Alvin Kamara. They're kind of just there's some kind of random guys in, right? Versus Austin Eckler, who rushed for 234 yards last week. I think he's gonna have a good day. I don't think he's gonna have 234 yards, but he's probably gonna have at least 90 to 100 with a touchdown. I would start him. He seems like a safe bet. He seems like a safe. I mean, you're gonna start him anyways if you draft him. Yeah, you had to draft him early, but statistically, algorithm says go with it. I would go with it. Bijan Robinson / Tyler Aguilar, whichever one you have, start them. Atlanta looked decent last week against Carolina. I don't think Carolina has a very good defense, but they're playing the Packers. The Packers did allow 122 rushing yards, one rushing touchdown last week. Both of these guys were, I mean, they were rushing their tails off, right? Yeah, I mean, the Falcons rushed for 130 yards. All right, so the running backs that you need to sit this week are going to be Najee Harris, Alexander Madison, Joe Mixon, Isaiah Pacheco, and Javonte Williams. Like I said, don't play any Steelers players. I already said that once, but Steelers did not look good. Alexander Mattis, just the algorithm, just the rushing that the Eagles allowed last week, 73 yards, 0 rushing touchdowns. Like, that's the thing. Like, these stats I'm looking at, these NFL teams are looking at, right? If they're saying, okay, like, this Eagles defense has a awful secondary, but a great, like, defensive line, that's what they're going to create their game plan around, right? You got to think along the lines of that. Yeah, don't start Alexander Madison. Madison? Am I saying that right? Joe Mixon, same thing. I mean, Bengals look bad. Matchups kind of iffy. Ravens have a really good defense. Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah, don't start Isaiah Pacheco. Playing against Jacksonville. Jacksonville out 65 rushing yards, one rushing touchdown. The rushing touchdown gives me a little hope, but at the same time, it's like Kelsey's back. You know, it's Jacksonville's got a pretty good defensive line, it looks like. Like, if they get to the goal line, it's going to be hard for Mahomes either not running him himself or give it to Kelsey, right? Especially if a team has like a very strong D line. And then Javonte Williams, I don't even think the Broncos like run game existed this week. Broncos, yeah, 94 yards, 0 rushing touchdowns. They're playing against the Washington Commanders, who they allowed 114 rushing yards, 0 rushing touchdowns. That one's iffy. I mean, the Broncos could rush 70 to 90 yards, but at the same time, if there's no touchdowns, you're looking at like 7 to 8 points in your league, right? Yeah, I mean, I would stay away. Javonte Williams. I know some of y'all probably got him in the 5th round, 6th round. Running backs are a little scarce right now, but you got to find somebody else that's going to get you at least 10, 11 points, right? 15, hopefully. All right. All right. So wide receivers. We all know like the star wide receivers. I'm looking to not talk about the star wide receivers, but more so dive into some like flex players, or some receivers that you're kind of like questioning if they're going to have a good week or not. The first one the algorithm shows is Jordan Addison. Um, Kind of what I was saying earlier about Kirk Cousins. The Eagles allowed 306 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. The Vikings put up 328 yards. Justin Jefferson is going to get most of these passing yards, right? But at the same time, you can't get all 300 and however many Kirk Cousins is going to throw. I'd expect Addison to have a big game, especially like if Justin Jefferson is getting double teamed. Addison seems safe. I would I would even put him in your like defensive slot, not just your flex spot, unless you have some really good receivers. But Jordan Addison, I really like him this week. Um, this one this one might be a little controversial, but DeAndre Hopkins. Um, the Chargers allowed 466 yards to the Dolphins, 3 passing touchdowns. We know Tua is a safer quarterback than Ryan Tannehill. We saw that last week. But, I mean, it was 466 yards. Like, even if Tannehill can throw half of that, 233, um, it's still a big game, especially for Ryan Tannehill. We saw that DeAndre Hopkins was clearly the number one receiver. He was targeted 13 times. I'm expecting him to get highly targeted again this game. DeAndre Hopkins, throw him in the flex. He's gonna. I don't know if he'll have a touchdown. Yeah, he'll probably have a touchdown, but he's at least gonna put up some big yards for sure. Next up, we got Mike Evans. Baker actually looked pretty good. The Bucks had 2 passing touchdowns against the Vikings. The Bears only allowed 3 passing touchdowns to the Packers. I don't know why I said only, but the Bears did allow 3 passing touchdowns to the Packers. I think the Bucks have another big game this week. I think I don't know if they'll win, but Baker is playing pretty good. It seems like Mike Evans is his guy. Chris Godwin. I mean, if you have Chris Godwin, play him too. Um, yeah, I think who's the better quarterback, Baker Mayfield or Jordan Love, right? If Jordan Love's putting up crazy numbers against this team, Baker Mayfield has to as well, right? I mean, still early in the year. It's still these stats are only going off 1 week, but I think Mike Evans is a good play. Um, the next one, Amon St. Brown. I mean, I don't have to talk too much about that. Everybody watched that game, but Detroit looked pretty good. They play. Did I already say who they played? Yeah, they play the Seattle Seahawks. Yes, I mean, kind of talked about that a little while ago, but Amon St. Brown is the man in Detroit. He's going to be catching most of these balls. Play him if you got him. He's solid. Players I'm saying to sit, Jamar Chase, Odell Beckham Jr., Drake London, and sit Kyle Pitts while you're there. I wouldn't play any Atlanta receivers this week. Uh, Puka Nuka, am I saying this one right? The Rams guy, Puka Nuka. Um, and then I'm saying sit any Giants or Cardinals receivers. I'm not even saying that like to be funny, but neither of these teams look great, but both of their defenses actually are pretty decent. I know that like the Giants got blown out, but they held Dak to 143 yards. Um, they have a pretty good secondary. The Giants do. I don't think the Cardinals are going to be able to like throw more. I don't even know who the Cardinals quarterback is. Josh Dobbs maybe, but they're not going to be able to throw more yards than Dak Prescott, and then vice versa, right? Like the Cardinals, their secondary played really well this week. Um, Daniel Jones looked awful. Like I wouldn't start any receivers for either of these teams. Wouldn't start any tight ends. Just stay away from it. Give them another week. Let's see how their stats look after this week. But Jamar Chase, sorry, I yawned. Jamar Chase, I want to believe in the Bengals. Like I said, that Ravens defense is solid. Bengals didn't look too hot. They didn't look like themselves. So I would give it another week, see what happens, but I wouldn't start Jamar Chase unless you absolutely have to. Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers is the man in Baltimore. Odell, I don't think he didn't really do a whole lot. Let's see, who did I say? Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Let me see the stats on this Atlanta game. Yeah, Atlanta's playing the Packers. So Atlanta threw for 91 yards. What's his name? Desmond Riddler. Threw for 91 yards. Let's see. The Packers allowed 189 yards. I mean, I wouldn't expect them to throw for more than 130, 140 yards, right? They may get a passing touchdown, but then at that point, is it Kyle Pitts? Is it London? Who's getting it? It's just too much of a gamble. Their running game is much more consistent, much stronger. Yeah, I would stay away from both of those guys for sure. But yeah, that's my picks for the week. Just to give you the review again, I'm saying quarterbacks you need to start are going to be Kirk Cousins, Tua, Jared Goff, Matt Stafford, Trevor Lawrence. Quarterbacks you should sit are Anthony Richardson, Joe Burrow, Kenny Pickett, Daniel Jones, Desmond Riddler, Brock Purdy, and Russell Wilson. Running backs you should start are Nick Chubb, Justice Hill, Austin Eckler, David Montgomery, and Bijan Robinson. Running backs you should sit are Najee Harris, Alexander Madison, Joe Mixon, Isaiah Pacheco, Javonte Williams. And then wide receivers that you should start are Jordan Addison, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, Amon St. Brown. And then wide receivers that you need to sit are Jamar Chase, Odell Beckham, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Puka Nuka. Yeah. And then just any Giants, any Cardinals receivers. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Make sure you comment any questions you have going into week 3. Like, subscribe, do all that cool stuff.